My name is Lucy. I live with my husband, Michael. We first met back in our student days. We started dating soon after and continued our relationship through the transition from students to working adults. Then, Michael proposed, and that led us to marriage. Since we had a loving relationship and lived together, other than the fact of being officially married, not much changed after the wedding, and we have been living peacefully as a couple without any conflicts. We were seen by our in-laws as a harmonious and peaceful pair. However, our gentle nature may have seemed too soft to those two. Those two refers to my sister-in-law, Emily, and her husband, Richard. They had married 2 years before us. Having been with Michael for a long time, I was well aware of his sister's marriage, too. However, it seemed that Emily's wedding wasn't entirely smooth. She seemed to be the type who cared about appearances, declaring, "I will only invite women who look less attractive than me to my wedding," leaving her parents-in-law bewildered. I wonder what her friends, who were invited to the wedding, would think if they heard that. She must not have considered that at all to be able to say such things. I was told she uttered those words in front of the friends she invited, and the room was instantly enveloped in silence. One woman said, "Isn't that too much?" But she retorted, "Stop being jealous of me. You should be grateful I invited you all, who are almost in your 30s. Whether Richard's friends see you all as potential partners is another matter," and that made the atmosphere even colder. Despite being such a rude person, I couldn't understand why Richard doesn't divorce her. But the answer was quite simple. Richard, just like Emily, is someone who makes impolite comments. Far from admonishing Emily for mocking their wedding guests, Richard added insult to injury by saying, "Emily, it's cruel to confront them with the truth. Even ugly people have feelings." As a result, more of their own friends kept their distance from them. Even those who weren't invited to the wedding cut their ties with them after hearing stories from the attendees. While friends can sever connections, we, being relatives, find it hard to do so. This apartment is quite splendid. Normally, you'd think of a detached house as a mansion, but with this much space, even an apartment can be called a mansion. Emily suddenly visited our apartment and expressed her impression as she looked around. I was baffled by her unexpected visit. However, she proceeded to walk down the hall, opening doors one after another. All I could do was stand there, dumbfounded. Michael, her own brother, was just as surprised, standing with his mouth agape. While we were stunned, Emily freely snooped around our home. "Where are the beer and snacks?" Richard asked us, opening the fridge without permission. I couldn't help but be astonished by the audacity of my brother-in-law and his wife. In any typical household, opening doors and refrigerators without asking is considered rude, something we're all taught. I was just dumbfounded by their inability to follow such basic courtesy. "I'm sorry, but may I ask what brings you here today?" I inquired after taking a deep breath to compose myself. "Didn't you invite Mom and Dad over to this apartment? It only makes sense that I, as your sister, would be welcome too, right? By the way, why haven't you offered any tea yet?" she declared while munching on snacks she found in the kitchen cabinet without our consent. Eating snacks from the shelf without asking, then demanding tea? With a heavy heart, I served tea to Emily and Richard. It's true that a few days ago, we did invite my parents-in-law over, but that was for a special reason, not to show off our home. The term invite felt a bit off to begin with. "I bet you served Mom and Dad some delicious sweets and fancy tea, huh? After all, you need to stay in Dad's good books, don't you?" she said, looking at us with an uncomfortable gaze, laced with sarcasm. Neither Michael nor I could think of any reason to ingratiate ourselves with my father-in-law. We've never used flattery just to attract his attention. We just couldn't grasp whatever Emily was trying to say. "What are you getting at, Emily?" "We're not trying to get Dad to like us or anything," Michael inquired. With a chuckle, Emily retorted, "You wouldn't be able to stay at the company if you don't lick his boots, right?" Michael and I exchanged glances, puzzled. True, my father-in-law runs a business, and Michael is one of his employees. But Michael works there earnestly, under his father, who doesn't play favorites, He's been through tough training and now holds a position managing a team. There's no need for sycophancy to keep his job. Of course, it's only proper to show due respect to his father, the CEO of the company. I'm the center of the family, and Michael came into the picture later, right? So Michael should be concerned about Dad's feelings and mine. If I get upset, I could just ask Dad to kick you out of the company, she asserted confidently. Michael and I could only exchange looks. We had absolutely no idea what she was aiming for. Richard smirked proudly as Emily declared that we'd lose our jobs if we didn't bow down to her. I probably wasn't the only one who felt uncomfortable under his gaze. After making remarks beyond our comprehension, they left. They left behind scattered snacks and spilled tea. Sighing, we began to clean up quickly. What was she trying to say? That she'd have me fired? Michael murmured, "Does Emily really have a say in personnel decisions?" I asked, and Michael shook his head. No way. As you know, Dad's not especially soft on family members. If anything, he's pretty strict. Seeing Dad's strictness makes me think. Mom spoiled Emily too much when she was young, he said, right? Dad wouldn't give Emily special treatment, that's for sure, I agreed. My mother-in-law coddled young Emily to an extreme and now deeply regrets it, saying she wishes she could hide in a hole for how she raised her. I can't help but feel pity for my parents-in-law, for the disappointment they must feel towards their daughter's transformation into someone they didn't intend her to be. But why did Emily say she would fire you? Was there some kind of trouble? That's a real mystery. Michael and I could only shrug in confusion. No matter how much we ponder, Emily's true intentions were beyond us. Deciding not to dwell on it, I moved on to the next task at hand. That task was preparing to move. With this, most of the packing is done. Next is the big move, huh? After completing the paperwork and shipping the boxes, I took a flight to France. What was happening back in our home in the US was beyond my imagination. Upon landing in France and turning on my phone, I discovered over 10 voicemail messages from Emily. Surprised, I thought of my in-laws. Despite my reservations, I immediately contacted her. Emily, I just checked my phone. Is everything okay? I asked urgently. The reply I received was completely unexpected. Finally got through to you. Since you didn't respond, Richard and I had a delightful time on your and Michael's bed, she said. What? I couldn't comprehend what she was saying and just tilted my head in confusion. Emily sounded pleased, so it seemed unlikely that anything had happened to my in-laws. So, I'm at your apartment now. You both seem to be away and we're just enjoying this luxurious space, she continued. Apartment? Our apartment where we used to live? Why are you there? And what do you mean by a delightful time with your husband? I asked, bewildered. I was just holding my head, confused. I had known of Emily and Richard's impudence, but I never imagined it would come to this. They had prepared a spare key to use in our absence. This seemed to have been planned all along. Oh yes, I got rid of all your stuff, she exclaimed. What? I was in shock, because this wonderful home is ours now. We'll set aside Michael's things until he comes to pick them up. I've disliked you since way back. This is my revenge, she declared. I see. You were critical even at your own wedding about others' appearances. I never thought you'd turn that criticism on me. Before evaluating others' faces, you should take a look at the darkness in your own heart, I said. Ha! She seemed perplexed. You said you disposed of my things, right? I asked to confirm. Yes, I threw them out. By the way, what was with your stuff? There were several albums, but not a single photo of you in them. They were all pictures with Michael at the center. And in all of them, he's not even looking at the camera. You really have no skill in taking photos. The albums were creepy, so I threw them out this morning, she bragged. Emily proudly detailed how she had thrown everything away. She boasted about discarding the clothes in the closet, the books and diaries on the bookshelves, and selling the computer and other electronics to someone she knew. I didn't get upset or raise my voice because those belongings weren't mine. So, how about it? Aren't you going to cry and ask me why I threw them away? If you cry, won't your face become even uglier? She taunted. Sorry to burst your bubble while you're enjoying throwing away someone else's stuff. But just so you know, Michael and I got divorced and I now live overseas, I informed her. What? That means the things you disposed of weren't mine. Wait a minute. You lived in this apartment with Michael, right? And Michael's clothes are still here. How can Michael's things be here and not yours? That's because I left the apartment when we got divorced. No way. You two always seemed so happy together. Emily's surprise was understandable. Nonetheless, Michael and I were indeed divorced. Actually, I split up with Michael because of your parents' request. What? Remember the photos in the album you said you threw away? The ones where Michael isn't looking at the camera? Yes, I remember. But those photos were taken by a woman who was obsessed with Michael. They're candid. That's why he wasn't looking at the camera. What? Michael and I had been troubled by that woman for a long time. We hoped she would give up on him once we were married. However, things were not that simple. She was convinced Michael was her destiny and interfered with our marriage multiple times. We managed not to invite her to the wedding, but her furious father turned out to be the head of a major corporation that my father-in-law, as a business owner, respected. Disregarding my daughter's feelings and proceeding with another woman? What's the meaning of this? If you don't marry my daughter, your business is over, he threatened without hesitation. When I mentioned this, Emily seemed lost for words and shock. After a moment, I called out, "Hello," and she snapped back, asking cautiously, "That woman, is she Rachel by any chance?" "Yes, that's right." "You know Rachel, don't you? I heard she's your and Michael's childhood friend." "That Rachel? Is it really that Rachel?" It seemed Rachel had misunderstood their childhood friendship as something more and had harbored this misconception for years. Suddenly, Emily's cheerful tone changed drastically. "Don't tell me. After you got divorced and left this apartment, Rachel moved in to live here with Michael." "Exactly. So the photo albums, clothes, and diaries I got rid of they would all belong to Rachel, wouldn't they?" The moment she realized the situation, she inadvertently gasped. It seemed Rachel was someone Emily would rather avoid. Emily must have wanted to avoid unnecessary involvement with a woman whose father runs an even larger corporation than her own father. But now it's too late. "Hey, Lucy, can't we do something even now? If you come over quickly and explain you did it out of spite because she took Michael away. As I mentioned before, I'm overseas now, so I can't be there instantly." "Bro, she'll definitely scold me. She's the type to bring her parents into even the smallest conflict and press the issue to the end. And to think I did it with my husband on the bed that was meant for her and Michael. It's too late for regrets now, and honestly, it's best to just tell the truth, don't you think?" "I can't do that." "Oh, I know. I'll clean up quickly and hide somewhere. I'm going to run away. If anyone asks, I'll just say Lucy caused it all." I told her that would be difficult. "Why would that be difficult?" "Because I accepted a substantial amount of money from Rachel to put some distance with her dream life with Michael, and I moved overseas to live a life I've always dreamed of. I've already told her that, but she was worried I might come back for Michael. So she gave me her contact information, insisting I call her as soon as I arrived overseas. I just sent her a photo of myself here and a screenshot from Messenger confirming you and Richard entered the apartment without permission. She just contacted me saying she's already at the apartment." Oh, wait, there's the intercom." With those words, the call ended. Presumably, Rachel, accompanied by her father's men, swiftly took care of Emily and Richard. While Emily and Rachel's standoff continued, I focused on settling into my new life here. "Sorry I'm late, Lucy," Michael said with a smile as he hurried over to me at the airport. Because she was unable to give up on Michael, Rachel watched us dissolve our relationship in front of her, and we decided to hastily escape abroad. It was convenient for us as my in-laws and their company were at a standstill, possibly considering liquidation. Emily had long believed she would take over the company, but now faced the reality of it shutting down without having worked today. In the end, Rachel forced Emily and Richard into hard labor at a company her father owned, angry that they had tainted her home. Surprisingly, Rachel began to show affection towards Richard, and now Emily is left to work alone, struggling to pay off her debt to Rachel. We decided to enjoy our peaceful days in a new land, free from the troubles of Rachel and the burdensome siblings-in-law. My name is Suzanne. I'm 45 years old. My husband is the same age as me, and we live together with his mother. I have a feeling my mother-in-law will have something to say, so I better get dinner started. Time sure flew by. Before I knew it, it was past 5 p.m. I took a short break and headed to the kitchen on the first floor. It seemed my mother-in-law hadn't come home yet. I took a moment to relax and started to think about the dinner menu. I work from home as a fashion designer, so this house also serves as my workplace. The living and dining areas are on the first floor, and the second floor houses our bedroom and my workspace. I'm home. Today was exhausting. Upon seeing me, my mother-in-law let out an exaggerated sigh. What followed were her usual remarks. You're just starting dinner? Isn't it a bit late? I came home tired, and my son will be home soon, you know? My mother-in-law tended to nitpick about small things. Sorry, mother-in-law. While she is enjoying her retirement, I'm still working. I wish she'd understand that sometimes. Nonetheless, I tried to change the topic by asking, Mother-in-law, where did you go today? I met up with some neighbors. Apparently, they're going to attend an event at the senior citizens' home. But honestly, chatting with other elderly folks can be tiring. I see. That must have been a bit tough, I replied to her with a smile. I was saying to myself inwardly, you're an elderly yourself, aren't you? If you'd like to do something nice, maybe you can get me something sweet. How about getting a bun from the next door shop? My mother-in-law always prioritized her own feelings. She often tried to get me to do things her way. It was tiring, but I always thought of ways to handle it. If she made a fuss, I might just give her the old cake from the fridge. I spent my days with her like this. Suzanne, is this all for today's menu? She asked with a slightly surprised look. Before her were pot roast with braised vegetables, home-style chicken noodle soup, and leftover fried chicken with pickles. Well, I was a bit busy today, so I made something quick. Even if you're busy with work, you shouldn't neglect your duties as a wife. Next to me, my husband said, yeah, but this looks good enough to me. He said that happily and began to eat my cooking. There was a subtle tension at the dinner table. When I was a newlywed, I was always on edge, but I lived each day to the fullest. I'd get up early, stay up late, cook, sew, arrange flowers. I cherished each of these hobbies. As she reminisced, I was reminded of her era. Indeed, her sewing skills and her hobbies, like flower arrangements, were truly impressive. People around often said Suzanne's mother-in-law is really graceful, but they didn't know how demanding she could be at home. I've lived with her for over 20 years. When we first started our married life, my husband and I enjoyed our time together. But one day, my mother-in-law suddenly came to live with us. Her marriage wasn't going well, and she had a fallout with my father-in-law. He had a stern demeanor, and she seemed scared of him. According to my husband, his father was sometimes very hard on her and, sadly, even raised his hand against her. While he was doted on as their son, his mother was treated poorly. Then, when my father-in-law suddenly declared he was remarrying, she had to leave with nothing. Nearing 50, she seemed lost with nowhere to go. My husband and I decided to take in my mother-in-law because we were concerned about her. 20 years have passed since then, and I began to notice changes in my mother-in-law's personality. She started directing the same behavior she had once received from my father-in-law towards us. One day, when I was busy with household chores and couldn't make tea, I asked my husband to do it for me. He kindly obliged, but my mother-in-law shot me a look and asked, "What are you doing?" "I'm sorry, my hands are full right now." "So what? You only contribute $500 in rent every month. What are you thinking?" She blurted out, Watching her make the tea herself, I thought, if you could do it yourself, you should have done it from the start. Living together like this made me realize how challenging it truly was. One day, my mother-in-law came home looking rather excited. She walked around the house with a spring in her step, humming a cheerful tune. "Mother-in-law, you seem to be in a good mood. Did something good happen? Speaking of which, Suzanne, which room do you think is bigger, the one on the first or second floor?" Her question caught me off guard. The room on the second floor has more space. If you remove the walls, you can utilize even more of it. Really? Then I shouldn't have any space issues. Wondering what she was up to, I asked her for more details. "Are you planning on starting something new?" "Actually, I'm going to start a sewing class," she said with a proud and happy expression. "A sewing class?" As a teacher, I was genuinely surprised. The sewing circle at the community center is ending, and a friend suggested we start a new class together. It was surprising that my nearly 70-year-old mother-in-law would be teaching. "That's amazing. Sounds like fun." I responded with a bit of an exaggerated reaction. "So, you're having the sewing class at the community center?" "No, not there," she said with a smile. "Then, where will you hold it?" "Here, at this house." "What? Are you serious?" I blurted out in disbelief. "That's why the second floor room seems perfect. Please tidy it up a bit. I'll have students coming over soon, so let's keep it neat. But that's where I do a lot of my work," I replied with a concerned look. "Your job, right? You can use the first floor's room." I was taken aback, but that room is a bit small, and I need the flooring for my tools. She seemed to ponder a bit but eventually smiled. "I'll reconsider, but I really like that room." Struggling for words, I asked, "So, what should I do then?" She took my hand and said, "Maybe you can rent an external studio for your work. I'll look into it." And with that, she headed upstairs. I watched as she began to carefully put away my tools and materials. Taking a deep breath, I mustered some courage. "In that case, could I reduce the monthly rent I've been paying?" She smiled warmly. "Let's suggest it. But remember, we need to cooperate and support each other from now on." I reluctantly replied, "Understood." Then, the day of the sewing class my mother-in-law had planned arrived. The room was filled with lively voices. There were about 10 students, mostly my age, and I recognized a few faces. "Suzanne, can you help me out? Please serve tea to everyone." I nodded and headed upstairs after making the tea. After distributing the tea, I remembered something and said with a smile, "Now, about the room's usage fee." A momentary silence followed. "Usage fee? What's that about? Wait, we need to pay today?" Some of the students looked at me with surprised faces. My mother-in-law seemed to be hiding a hint of anger. "Actually, this room is my workspace. So, if you want to use it, I'd like to charge a bit. Renting a space this size can be quite costly." My mother-in-law silently observed the reactions of the students. "It amounts to over $2,000 a month, so if we split it among everyone here today, it's about $100 per person. Is that something everyone can agree with?" I waited for a response with a smile. "Suzanne, you can't be serious about this, can't you?" There was confusion on my mother-in-law's face. "Yes, we will actually need to collect usage fees, but not from the participants today. We will also need to cover utilities and property taxes." As I continued in a gentle tone, my mother-in-law's expression softened. "All right, I understand. But Suzanne, the utilities and such. I need some time to think about that." "Well, if you use this room, it's only fair," I responded with a smile. The students, who had been listening to our conversation, began to murmur. "Wait, was this originally Suzanne's room?" "Yes, it was initially my workspace." Knowing that, I might have to reconsider taking classes here." While some students looked worried, a few started to pack up to leave. "What's the meaning of this? Inviting us and then doing this?" One of my mother-in-law's friends, Michelle, raised her voice in frustration. "Michelle, I'm sorry. This room is also Suzanne's workspace." My mother-in-law, looking frantic, called out to the departing students, "Wait, please. but the sound of doors closing could be heard one after another. Michelle looked at my mother-in-law with a puzzled face. Everyone, I apologize for the surprise, but this room is really important to me. I want everyone to have a good time here, so I just ask for a bit of understanding. I tried to ease the tension, but Michelle said, next time, make sure to discuss this in advance, and with a bitter smile, she patted my mother-in-law's shoulder and left. My mother-in-law stood there for a while. I finished my tea, left the room quietly, and decided to enjoy the outdoor air. Later, at a cozy cafe bathed in soft light, I was having a good time. In front of me were Michelle and the students involved in the earlier incident. Michelle, thank you for the other day. As I expressed my heartfelt gratitude, Michelle smiled warmly. It's okay, Suzanne, but I was shocked that your mother-in-law would pull such a stunt, she said with a chuckle. I didn't expect things to turn out this way, but now I'm really enjoying it. A student sitting next to me said shyly. That day's events were actually a plan we had secretly hatched. The truth is, Michelle is the mother-in-law of my friend and we've always been close. She always sees right through me when I'm in trouble. That's why, with Michelle's help, we decided to execute a certain plan. One of the students, who was the only one unaware of the situation, exclaimed, "Wait, all that was planned?" I said with hopeful anticipation. Well, I might have spiced things up a bit, but hopefully this will get my mother-in-law to be more considerate. Suzanne, you've really surprised me by coming up with something this entertaining, Michelle said with a bright smile. The atmosphere in the cafe was warm and friendly. Michelle was quite interested in my future plans. So, Michelle, what are you planning to do about the sewing class? For now, I'm planning to hold it at a different location. I see. I can introduce you to a place I know. They're very reliable. That's so kind of you, Suzanne. You're always so dependable. Michelle's words filled my heart with joy. After this incident, I felt our bond has deepened even more. As I sipped my fragrant tea, confident in this. When I got home, I noticed my mother-in-law seemed a bit different. Suzanne, this is unbelievable. You embarrassed me in front of so many people. You need to apologize to everyone right now. Her eyes were furious. Taking a deep breath, I slowly took out my phone. Sorry, I'm on the phone right now, I said, showing her the name Michelle on the screen. Her astonished face was unforgettable. Huh? Why are you talking to Michelle? When my surprised mother-in-law reached for my phone, my husband's voice came from the speaker. Hey, Mom, what's this about Michelle? She was speechless, her eyes wide with shock. Yes, I had cheekily changed my husband's contact name to Michelle just for fun. Seeing her confused expression, I couldn't help but smile. Don't worry, it's just a little joke, I said, heading to the kitchen. After that day, my mother-in-law's attitude completely changed. She became gentler and seemed to be more cautious around me. During meals, she seemed wary, as if wondering what I might be up to next. My husband noticed the change, commenting, "Mom, you seem a bit off. Is everything okay?" I wonder why," she responded. "It might just be because she's getting older," my husband added, looking deep in thought. From then on, our home became more peaceful. I started to relax more in my daily life. Who would have thought that a simple prank could change the atmosphere at home so much? I cherish each day, enjoying